Okay, Mengla Bakmia. And General TVB, there's a women Sizima Josovare, Dinner General, there's a women Mara, Bomabia ILO liaison official Steve Marshall Chibaranga. Okay, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for allowing your time. I'd like to ask one specific question. Your role as a liaison officer in Myanmar is two particular issues. One is about elimination or systematic use of forced labor, and also use of child soldier. And you are given your report in November, forthcoming November at the ILO conference. What is the, please tell us, what is the latest situation, and is there anything done, what need to be improved, particularly in this country at this moment?
Okay, yes, you're very right. The ILO core activities since 2007 has been about the elimination of the systematic use of forced labor. And yes, that does include the use of underage recruits, but it covers things like human trafficking for forced labor, forced domestic workers, a range of different activities. Actually, our workload has expanded, right? But that is still a core area of focus. And in November of this year, I am required to submit to the governing body of the ILO a report on the progress that has been made for the elimination of this activity. In 2012, the government of Myanmar signed an MOU which essentially committed to working with us and with broader society towards the elimination of the systematic use of forced labor by the end of 2015. That's pretty close.
That is the target.
That's the target, and that's fairly close. We have been reporting on that and working with the government, and good progress has been made. There is no question that actually the actual use of the traditional forced labor has reduced. In the context of the military's responses have been very positive, and they have passed new rules and orders, and the military use of forced labor has reduced. It has, however, not finished. Right? We still have work to do together. And in November, working with the government, I will be reporting on the progress that is made and the areas where we think work still needs to be done. In March of this year, again, I briefed the government fully on it. We saw the issues as being a continuation of public awareness and empowerment, that people actually knew what their rights were. That is very important, that people understand that forced labor is not legal. Right? But also in terms of the application of the law, that people who break the law must be held to account. And yes, I have to say the Tatmadaw have been very strong on accountability, and they have been prosecuting military personnel for the use of forced labor. In respect of the civilian authorities and the private sector, we still need to see progress in that area of the application of the law. So really the emphasis is on awareness, of training of people with authority, an understanding of the law, and the application of the law.
It is very wide range. What do you think it is realistic that the in 2015 target will be fulfilled?
I think firstly we have to be very practical. Forced labor is not just a problem for Myanmar. Right? Most countries in the world do have the situation where largely employers in the private sector break the rules and break the law, but not on a systematic basis. And the problem that we experienced in Myanmar was that actually this was forced labor that was systematic, and in those days was applied actually by the government of the day.
Once you go Burma, modern found slavery because of this systematic
Correct.
use.
But so That is why we say the elimination of the systematic use. Right? We understand that actually there will still be bad people who will still do bad things. But it's got to be clear in everybody's mind that this is not something that is seen as acceptable. It is not something which citizens need to simply accept. It was our hope that actually by the end of 2015 we would have clear evidence that this had been achieved. One of the difficulties, of course, is that forced labour goes hand in hand with the issue of armed conflict. And the issues around the border areas, for example, we note that the situation continues to be slightly worse in the border areas than it is in central Myanmar. So there is still work to be done. I will make my report, and the good thing in November is that the government will also make a report. And the government report, we hope, will be outlining their plan and their commitment for addressing this issue on a continuing basis. And on that way, the objective is that we will be in a position to normalise full relationships with the government, which means that eventually, I don't know when, but at some stage, this office will stop being a liaison office and would become a proper, normal country office.
Country office. So from the government to the denial, there is no use of forced labor to at least admit that
it's a very big progress. And in the area of child soldiers, the Tatmadaw, as you can see from the billboards that are all around the countryside, the Tatmadaw have moved well past denial. They now acknowledge that this is a problem, and they are, as a professional military service, are very committed to trying to resolve the issue. We do still find complaints of children being recruited. It is much lower than it used to be, right? And I have to say that the military respond positively to the receipt of those complaints, and those children are discharged. But what we're looking towards, and I know what the Tatmadaw are looking towards, is to being able to put their hand up and say, we as a professional army are a child-free army. And we are not quite there yet. There's more work to be done. But the progress has been good.
Okay, move to this particular forced labor and child soldier issue to another issue of applying proper international labor law practice that you've been helping. What is the status of the current government? Respond to the particular labor law with the international standards.
Okay. Well, as you know, when the government came into office in 2011, the legislative framework was very weak. Very weak. A lot of the law was based on the old colonial structures and was completely irrelevant for a modern open society. And frankly, the government has moved very quickly and should be given credit for the change. However, what we are facing is that this is a huge, huge amount of work. This is not something that is going to change overnight. But the government, in some key areas, and you would have seen it in terms of the labour organisation law, the dispute settlement law, they're currently revising the Factories Act, we're working with them on the child labour laws, a whole range of fundamental laws are being very rapidly updated. Right? But what the government also understands is that the structure of the law is not right. And so we have agreed, and we're working with others, with the United States, with Denmark, with Japan, the government and ourselves, working towards completely revising the labour law structure, putting into place a new, cohesive, modern code of labour laws. But having the law is good, but you then have to apply it. And that is a different issue. That raises the issue of institutional capacity. We give the right to strike, Do we have good mediation, arbitration and conciliation services to support disputes, to stop the need for strikes, to actually have people to foster collective bargaining and social dialogue? The factory inspectorate, it has the role to apply the law. Have they got sufficient resources? Are there enough of them? Do they understand the law? So the institutional capacity building is also a major priority, to have the law and then to support the application of the law. In the labour market, it is actually a little bit more complicated, because actually what we're talking about is concepts. And many of these concepts are fairly alien to some of the experiences in Myanmar recently. For example, the concept of consultation, the concept of social dialogue, goes completely against the CRG concept that has existed in the past. Right? And so it's really also important that people are supported and empowered to be able to operate and to work within the framework of the law, but exercising these new rights.